No, I'm not ready, not yet.
All right.
Solidarity is to be a main issue.
Scud,
Solid with the
unknown
rest of the
face,
Occupy movement, so
face,
we're just a
wait,
faction. Does
face,
not count.
face.
And we've
Got to be more like soldiers in that aspect.
Yes, that we would have to
because
be.
we,
If
the
we do not
Occupied, we're gonna
remain
have
in
an
solidarity
active vote
with
go on
the rest
based
of
on
the
that,
Occupy
but
movement,
we're
then
definitely
we
going to
are
hear good
just
sounds and
an
say
anonymous
that's
faction with its own name. We
Yes.
must remain in solidarity with Occupy Wall Street, with Occupy
Wall
everywhere,
Street.
with all of our declarations and all of our inclinations in all of our general assemblies must be held in the highest respect. And anything passed by a city's general assembly must be considered as either equivalent
Yeah, I
or
started recording.
equal to everyone else's.
Right.
well, if everyone feels cool, I'd like to do an
National
introduction.
consensus.
Yeah, no, definitely. Consensus is worth, but you
All
got to
right.
make sure you're doing everything you can to build towards that in the most constructive manner possible with the least amount of risk as possible. All right, so I guess this started off. This is the Reoccupation Assembly, man. We are reoccupying a handful of the ones who first founded the first one in 555 back on September 17th are right here. Known as Pirate Mike, known as Rob, our Remedy, known as Bell Star, our beloved fucking constitutional lawyer, and Scud. And all the rest that you see right here, we occupied last night, as was an international call by the occupation of Wall Street, and we have their declaration. It is a beautiful and magnificent piece of work. I personally support it highly. I was blasting it out on the megaphones to the public. Really cool, powerful stuff in that thing from Cairo. We'd like to let everyone know that we are in fact doing this. We are reoccupying, and we are about to set down a lot of the ground guidelines that we believe are a huge step forward in learning from our mistakes and continuing on with our successes from when it actually first started. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and toss the ball around. Everyone can say something and we can get into it.
Yeah, all right.
Right on. Right on.
Wiggly fingers for Scud. Don't
Metal
start
sparkly.
that stuff. I guess for your fingers. Hey, the GA loves that shit. But we're not GA.
Get in on this.
Pass the ball around. Who's up?
Well, last night on February 28th, well, actually, let me take it back a little bit further. On February 11th, the New York General Assembly endorsed the call to stop the suppression of the Occupy movement. They called for reoccupations of lands that we'd been kicked out of, the public lands, the commons. Retake the commons is the war cry. So on February 20th, I brought it up to the GA in a rather loose proposal format, got everybody on board. We endorsed the action. I then had a couple days to kind of slam it together, and here we are reoccupying. We formed an ad hoc reoccupy committee that we were calling Rockupy. I missed a couple of the meetings, but they continued without us, and it was fine. Everything is great. We had a wonderful night last night. We had some rain. We had some inclement police activity and some hostile weather, however you want to mix that up. It worked out great, and we're still here almost 6 months later. Tonight, Scud wants to put forth a lot of ideas that'll act as reminders and prompts for further discussion. We're going to lay down some guidelines about screening people a little bit more. Not really screening, not really profiling, just keeping an eye on the content of the protest site. So maybe Scud should start it off, and that's what I have to say for now.
Does anyone have anything else they'd like to say?
I have one thing to add to that.
Yeah, no. Totally open.
I completely defer to some of my other original occupants' ideas and facts. I have been a peacekeeper for Occupy since the camp started. I have not been a member of the upper echelon of organization, but I have tried to keep a peaceful aspect and help put bad elements out of the camp. I am all for a redefining of one thing in particular, which I am all for. I do not believe that anybody should be a member of an Occupy camp who is not an active an interested protester who
Hear, hear.
understands why they're here, what they are fighting for, what we are for and against.
Rights and responsibilities.
Everyone, there's no way to protest wrong. You can protest however you want. But what we need to maintain is a core responsibility, is the fact that you are protesting for Occupy. Occupy is a worldwide organization of individuals who are tired of being suppressed and controlled by the 1%.
Here, here.
In which the Occupy movement has been oppressed. We need to
The
stop,
Occupy, yes, the Occupy
We need to
movement.
stand up for ourselves. We need to stand up for ourselves.
Out of control, Delta.
This statement and this secondary action is a direct response toward the repression of the Occupy movement, toward the controlled national response against occupations, nation and worldwide. We stand in solidarity with Egypt,
Greece.
Iran, Greece,
Chicago.
everywhere. Chicago, Indiana, Indianapolis,
Yeah.
New York,
Italy.
every city, every town,
Props to
every
London.
person. We stand in solidarity with you. Occupy New York has put in a call for action. Occupy a public place. Occupy a public place. Assert your right to assemble. Assert it. We will stand behind you. You are not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone. And we love you.
Right
And we
on.
stand right there behind you. 120,000%.
Well spoken, man. Definitely. That was our beloved peacekeeper, Nick. Well, I guess that's pretty much it. Just for off the top, without further ado, I'd like to get right to the core concepts. And one of the first things that I believe needs to get cleared up, aside from the fact that we are doing this in solidarity as OccupySF, as the ones who founded the OccupySF actual occupation side of the movement here in San Francisco, we are now going to go over what San Francisco's occupation characteristics are going to be. First and foremost, to be a part of an occupation assembly, you have to in fact be an occupier. Not a supporter, not an organizer, whatever that is, or anything else. You have to be literally a sovereign occupier, or, with a tiny exception, you have to be a well-versed and meaningful part of the forefront of the fight as, say, legal fluency and consistency and representation, which is where our other beloved comrade, Bell, comes into play. Someone who has been doing this stuff before many of us were born. Someone who's been doing this stuff by the soul, not by the paycheck, not by the hour, say. That is the one exception, and for right now, I would like to call that to a vote. For right now, the one exception that stands out from the occupation concept as it comes to direct occupation assembly inclusion, Bell is an exception to that. Can I get a show of hands?
Show of hands, yeah.
All right. Thumbs up, whatever you like. I believe this is consensus and we are all in agreement. I would also like to lay down another ground concept that we believe continues to be a success. Believing in consensus being the overall way things actually get passed as a defined, definite concept of the Occupy movement here from SF for the greater Occupy movement of Occupy the World and Occupy Wall Street.
Direct democracy.
Direct democracy and consensus. Do we still agree on that? Show of hands.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to offer one amendment. Okay, when somebody blocks or stands aside, stand-asides can explain themselves, but blocks, when they explain themselves and they get an amendment that everyone agrees to, their block is nullified.
Exactly. Who would like to enact that right now?
I would like to enact that. I would also like to add one thing.
majority.
I'd
No.
like to add one thing.
I will block that immediately. because that's mob rule and oppression and the
I
way for
got
the
a
suburbs
direct
to be.
response.
I agree.
Direct response. Direct response. Everyone has freedom of voice at Occupy.
Well,
Freedom of voice does not mean that because you dislike someone's idea or you dislike something someone says that you should just freely block an idea concept without having a discussion first. Blocks have been used wrongly, and we are working to address this problem.
I'm about to address that right now.
We are, there you go.
Okay.
See what I mean?
When it comes to message consistency and the Occupy movement, inconsistency with constitutionalism and free speech. When it comes to things like speech, no matter what it is, if it comes from an individual during a rally, during the occupation site, or whatever else, what we are going to put out there is, if it is not being rallied upon, if it's someone spewing off, to please pay it as little regard as possible and not generalize in terms. You can't tell people not to say something because that would be oppression. We are not here for that, but we will clearly be able to assemble what our messages combined are. Autonomy is one thing, a movement is something else. We embrace both concepts, but we are laying down guidelines for the movement as people can lay down their own guidelines for their own personal lives on their own and do not need a general assembly for that, so long as they are not trying to lynch off of anything or abridge the rights of something else. Another thing that I'm going to put right off the bat, as a founding concept, we are directly adopting the Constitution of the United States of America, especially with the fucking first 10 Bill of Rights. Show of hands. We are also deciding that a continued platform of protest goes towards concept of corporate personhood. Show of hands. Yeah. We are against corporate personhood.
Absolutely. Corporations are not people.
That's right. And we are for sovereignty above all conventions, whether it be industry, commerce, culture, religion, or any other kind of conventional relation. Human rights such as the right to speak, think, believe, self-determine, and rights to shelter without invasion, without probable cause presented at that. All the things succinct with the Constitution that do not contradict it in any terms. We are also for that. A show of hands.
And confections that people would want to fucking buy.
Just to get that started off.
Confections.
And that here and now we will also re-elaborate. What comes through Occupation Assembly is what the official concept of Occupy SF is, since we are in fact refounding it with the call of the Occupy movement. Show of hands. We do not disallow or prohibit satellite or off-branching Occupy movements that want to be a part of the movement. But in terms of Occupy consistency, we are in fact Occupy SF, the in fact Occupy reality of this city, municipality, and where we are.
San Francisco, California.
They can have Occupy whatever they want, but it is in fact not officially Occupy unless it passes through Occupy Assembly from Occupy SF.
Or whichever right Occupy you pass it from.
Yes.
It has to be passed through General Assembly or it is not recognized.
Occupation Assembly, then to General Assembly.
Yes. Our Occupy is Occupy SF.
Right.
People who want to be involved with Occupation Assembly, once again, must occupy a day and a night before, and we will determine whether or not they have fulfilled that. Show of hands. Consensually determine that.
And show consistency.
Well, that's a way of showing consistency.
But they can't just do it and then leave either.
Exactly.
Direct response.
What's that?
Direct response. No person shall come to a General Assembly for the first time not known and cause a block.
Agreed.
Oh, yes, agreed.
No member
Show
can
hands.
come.
Show of hands.
Show of hands. No first-time members are allowed a block.
That's
Great.
right.
Yeah, and I should actually say, unless you've been here for at least 3 months, you should not be allowed to blog, and you have not.
No,
consistent.
we already we can work with this.
We'll work with that.
Yeah.
First time
Not only that, but until we get a consistency platform in place that fully deals with concepts of prejudice when it comes to blocking, being able to have moral evaluation of your block and not just subterfuge, and being able to have a gradation scheme that deals with that very concept, propelling and in fact originating the concepts of competency, then you actually are not able to even participate in the voting process of General Assembly. A show of hands. And until the founders...
It's like we got gear being dropped off, so you kind of need to pause for a minute.
We're gonna pick up some gear. Hey, General Assembly, all our members.
We're pausing to accept the
We're pausing for station identification. After these messages, we'll be right back.
What kind of pie?